Greetings, intrepid adventurers of the internet, and welcome to Screaming Bolt. And first off, I apologise for the lateness of this, but between working from home and then, forest fires, plagues, mass civil unrest, by the time this goes out, I'm fully expecting kaiju. However, I am your host, Silverbolt, and I'm Screen Screamer. Welcome to the first of a two-part video looking at 2017's It. This film really doesn't need much of an introduction, as it was tremendously popular. And as famous as this film is, it actually had quite the troubled production. The script was knocking about for years. It was rewritten, it went through different actors, it went through different directors, different producers. At one point, I actually remember reading an article where they were going to tell the whole story from the point of view of Beverly, which defeats the entire purpose of the bloody movie. King's movie adaptations over the years have been invariably hit and miss. Films such as Green Mile, Shawshank Redemption, Misery, The Shining, which King hated, have all been widely successful movies. Others, such as It, Tommyknockers, The Stand, Pet Sematary, they're all now pretty much regarded as cult classics. And then you have the ones that are just plain bad, like Needful Things, Maximum Overdrive, and Thinner. This has pretty much stayed true to form, bad movie-wise, even into the modern day, with such films as The Cell, Pet Sematary, and that god-awful production of The Dark Tower. It, however, was not one of these ones, but is it as good as it makes itself out to be? Well... Oh yeah. Silverbolt and his wife go into quite an in-depth discussion in regards to this movie, and if you want to see that one, then have a look in the description. But bear in mind one very important thing. I wasn't in it. Also, in regards to comparing this film to the miniseries and the book, we're going to keep that to a minimum aside from really major changes, because if we discussed absolutely everything they change, we'd never get to the end. We open on Bill Denborough, played by Jaden Martell, and George, played by Jackson Robert Scott. Two things about this scene. One, it plays itself very naturally. It's just two children, who happen to be brothers, hanging out and, well, being kids who are also brothers. The second thing I'll mention is, my God, the green gradient on this film makes me feel like I'm watching season 1 of Supernatural. I wonder how the Winchesters would fare against Pennywise. Someone's probably done a fanfic of it somewhere. I am not looking through supernatural fanfiction. Yeah, that's an incestuous rabbit hole that's best avoided going down at all costs. I suppose one of the things we should address straight off the bat is the setting. Gone is the children from the 1950s and the adults from the 1980s. Instead, we now have children in the 1980s, represented by adults in modern day, 2019, 2020. A setting that, funnily enough, I don't actually have that much of a problem with. You, the purist, don't have a problem with this. Not really. Once I got my head around the idea that it's a modern take for a modern audience, I didn't have that much problem getting behind the idea itself. Besides, I love the 80s. I was born in the 80s. Georgie, anyway, is out in the rain playing with the boat that he and Bill made, and... Oh! That looked like it hurt! This little accident means that he can't catch up to his boat, and it sails off down the street and into a storm drain. And we get our first look at Pennywise, played by Bill Skarsgård. We're probably going to differentiate. Bill, if you're watching, that's egotistical. Apologies for butchering your name. This scene is much more drawn out than it is in the 90s miniseries, with a much bigger conversation going on between George and the clown. It also shows that this film is not fucking around. There is no evidence of the hammer horror, over-the-top, dark comedy stylings of Tim Curry. This is straight-up murder monster hobo clown. Bill Skarsgård doesn't even try and emulate Tim Curry's performance, and yeah, it's much stronger a performance for it. The way Pennywise is portrayed in this movie works immensely in its favour. One of the things that was always going to be a big comparison of was the difference between Tim Curry's performance and Bill Skarsgård's performance. And Skarsgård doesn't even try. He is just fantastic as this kooky, creepy, trying to be human but doesn't quite get it right monster clown. From the first bite, from the screaming, from Georgie being pulled into the sewer, to the blood all in the road, this movie really is letting you know it's not pulling any punches. It is a straight up horror movie. After a brief scene, we are introduced to Mike Hanlon, played by Chosen Jacobs, and he's having a little bit of trouble killing a sheep with a captive bolt pistol. Chekhov's gun? Oh, absolutely, Chekhov's gun. After a rather intense pep talk from Mike's grandpappy, we cut to Derry School at the end of the school year, and here we meet Eddie, played by Jack Dylan Grazer, and Richie, played by Finn Wolfhard of Stranger Things. And they're talking about...
They sliced the tip of his dick off. But then stay alone.
They're then joined by the subject of the circumcision, Stan Uris, played by Wyatt Olaf. Well, the snowman from Frozen. No, that's Olaf. Come on, dude, that was cheap. This particular scene settles over our character traits for the movies. Eddie's a little bit manic. Richie is, well, he's very manic, loud and crass. And Stan, well, Stan's a Jew. That's the best thing that you can say about him. He's a Jew. Well, that's pretty much his defining characteristic throughout most of this movie. Over some funky 80s tunes, we meet Beverly, played by Sophia Wills. We quickly determine her backstory when Greta accuses Beverly of being promiscuous. This is a marked change from both the book and the miniseries, where the reason given for Beverly joining the Losers Club was because she was poor. Here, it's because she's sexually promiscuous, so she is ostracised from her own peer groups. Greta and her cronies dump a bag of, essentially shit, all over Beverly's head, leave, and let the poor girl contemplate her place in the universe. Don't worry, the gunk is mostly cleaned off by the next scene. The boys then run afoul of Henry Bowers and his fabulous mullet, played by Nicholas Hamilton. With him is Patrick Hocksetter, whose hair is even more fabulous than mine, played by Owen Teague, and Belch, played by Jake Sim. We quickly establish that he's evil because he hasn't been attacking Bill because Bill has lost his brother. Henry has apparently not been attacking Bill since his brother vanished, but that free pass is now over, which is a really strange thing when you consider that Henry's behaviour is utterly psychotic, as we'll see. Rounding out our pre-teen ensemble is Ben, played by Jeremy Ray Taylor. He runs into a now somehow dry and supposedly no longer smelling Beverly, and through their discourse we learn two things. One, this is the 80s, and that means that we must reference all the 80s stuff that the 80s ever had to offer, such as Ben being a fan of New Kids on the Block. And two, Henry is looking for Ben. Which begs the question, why is Ben wearing headphones and listening to music? I mean, I know these aren't sound-cancelling beats that he's got on, but surely if you know that there is a psychotic bully looking for you, you wouldn't be wearing headphones, just in case the guy's sneaking up on you. Cutting back to Bill, we are treated to some truly supportive words from Bill's father in regards to the search for his missing brother George.
We should have gone.
He's gone! He's dead!
And we're following the tradition that everybody in Derry is an absolute asshole apart from our heroes. It is Mike who first has a genuine encounter with it, as he comes across a horrifying vision of people burning in a building, and then a very concealed look at the monster itself, which at this point has not yet been revealed in full glory. Next up we cut to Stan, and Stan is doing Jewish things, because he's a Jew. In this case, he's learning Hebrew from the Torah. Here we get a very well done horror scene. Stan is frightened of a creepy picture, a very natural and believable fear for a child to have. And naturally enough, it comes to life and tries to eat him. This scene is absolutely excellent. From the music of the flute that the creature's holding, to the fake out of the door opening, to the attack itself and its resolution of Stan bolting, it all just works very well. There's no talking or grandstanding from Stan's part, it's just monster shows up, little boy runs from it. The next scene is one of my favourites from this movie. It's the scene of Ben in the library doing research on the town of Derry. Which is a change I have to admit that I don't like. By taking Mike's role and giving it to Ben, you kind of end up Mike becoming redundant, almost. He's just there. He's a literal token black guy. He's there because the plot says that he has to be there. The scene with Ben builds very quietly. Though slightly out of focus, we do see that the librarian turns and smiles as the music starts. And as Ben is reading about the Kitchener Ironworks explosion of 1908, pulled straight from the book, a balloon that no one else sees gets Ben's attention, and he follows it downstairs into the records room. He follows a trail of Easter eggs that have just miraculously appeared, until a headless ghost child, presumably the one from the book, shows up. The ghost takes a second, and it allows the tension to build before charging down the stairs in that very modern ghost animation of that juddery quick step movement that modern horror films so like to do. Again, don't want to give a reference to Supernatural, but I'm fairly sure I saw it done in those scenes. As the ghost boy chases Ben through the flickering lights, the ghost vanishes and Pennywise is revealed. Ben escapes by sheer chance, running back up the stairs where he bumps into the librarian. This scene is another example of a bit of horror cinema done right. The music builds, the scene builds slowly. The progression is natural, it's not forced. And it goes from boy reading a book to, oh my god, boy running from creepy clown monster! Very, very quickly. It's an excellent scene, it's very well done, it's well shot, it's well acted. Except, what? Well, he escapes. Pennywise tries to kill him, and he gets away. Hold on. We don't have that much knowledge about the monster yet. We haven't even seen the entirety of Pennywise. We don't know what he can and can't do. But the creepy librarian? And we're trying not to keep comparing to the book. We'll see how long that lasts. You know, I will not forget about this. I know, but let's not derail the whole thing just yet. Fine. Ben escapes Pennywise and runs into Henry. How Henry knew he was in the library is anybody's guess. Bowers, clearly showing his true colours as a Slytherin now that Draco Malfoy appears to have joined his team, takes Ben to the kissing bridge, where...
You're gonna carve my whole name onto this cottage cheese!
Henry, being a one-dimensional psychotic Stephen King villain, decides that he's going to carve his name into Ben's stomach with a knife. Why? What the hell did Ben do that required that level of escalation? Try and fuck his cat? It's not explained. Let me guess, one-dimensional Stephen King villain being a one-dimensional Stephen King villain. Pretty much.
I'm gonna cut your fucking tits off, I swear to God!
Ben, managing to escape the Legion of Bad Haircuts, runs off into the Barrens and bumps into Richie, Eddie, Bill and Stan, who are messing about in the old pipes of Derry's greywater runoff looking for George. They realise that Ben is hurt, and all five of them, get the hell out of there. We cut back to Patrick of the Awesome Hair Hocksetter as he is exploring the tunnels with a cigarette lighter and a can of aerosol looking for Ben. Instead, he finds some zombie children, a dead end, and Pennywise in a fairly paint-by-numbers horror scene. The boys cycle into town as hypochondriac Eddie rabbits on about catching AIDS. Going into a chemist, they bump into Beverly, who's shopping for tampons. She runs distraction by allowing pervy chemist to perv on her. What the fuck? She's 12, for fuck's sake. And the boys pull off a quick shoplift in order to go fix up Ben. We're back at Bev's house and we are introduced to Beverly's dad. And he's a paedophile. Of course he fucking is. Beverly then takes a very somber solo moment and cuts off all her hair. It's a very, very powerful scene, and it really does show Beverly as a frightened and traumatized child. And say what you like about child actors, Sophia Wills does a very good job with this. What follows is a scene that I think really focuses on what is one of the strongest things about this film and what makes it so good, is that this is a scene of children being children. And this is a common Stephen King thing where he writes children as little adults, but here they're just children being children. And I think that's a major plus in this film's ability to tell a story. Ben, continuing his role as historian, drops some exposition about how violent a town Derry is normally. And when we go back to Ben's house, we see all the history along one wall that he has collected in regards to the history of the town of Derry, including a reference to an old well. Yeah, that's another Chekhov's gun. Oh, and more 80s stuff, because, you know, it's the 80s. Eddie, presumably walking home, passes by an old house that might as well have "Giant Killer Fucking Clown Lives Here" written on it for all the subtlety it has of being a haunted house in a movie. And right on schedule, we have Eddie's horror. True to the book, a leper. What's not true to the book is it's CGI, and it really falls down. The first time on the screen, you know, the uncanny valley just slapped me around the face a little bit because it really does not look realistic. And I don't understand, when they put so much effort into Skarsgård's makeup, why they didn't go with the practical effect for this. With a little bit of CGI touch-up, it would have been so much better. Eddie runs, and in the garden, seemingly gets trapped up against a fence, and then Pennywise... oh, here we go. And he stops. He just fucking stops, gives some shit about floating, makes some balloons, and fucking vanishes. Now, he had Eddie. It wouldn't have taken much for him to jump across the garden and grab him. And I know there's a hole in the fence that Eddie escapes out of, but this whole part of this scene, it just feels really lazy because we know that Eddie has to get away. However, I will say this rather poor scene is saved by very much the next scene. Beverly, finding a random love note written to her by Ben, then starts to hear voices coming from the drain. So she gets a tape measure and runs it down the drain. Why? Logically, as an adult, makes no sense. Why would you get a tape measure to poke it down the drain? But that might very well be a child's natural reaction to do something that's illogical to an adult, but in the head of an 11-year-old girl, makes perfect sense. Do American Sinks not have U-bends? No idea. Beverly is then attacked by a straight, full-on Nightmare on Elm Street blood fountain. And, you know, they're not pulling any punches with this one. This is no little blood bubble like it was in the miniseries or the book. This is a full-on geezer. And also, this is a highly symbolic attack. Beverly is attacked by a manifestation, again, of lost innocence in the form of her first menstrual cycle, the sign that she is going from being a child into a woman, but also by the hair that she previously cut off to hide herself from the predations of her father. Bev gets covered in gore, but is not dragged down the pipes. Her father, hearing her screams, comes in, but he doesn't see the blood. He does decide, however, that this is the perfect moment, whilst his child is nearly catatonic and clearly traumatised by fear, to be a pervert. Fucking King villains. And I do have more to say in regards to Beverly, but we'll save that for the next video. So, cut it there? Yeah, we'll cut it there, dude, and yeah, cut it there, and we'll be back with our final thoughts with the second half of the movie. And remember, just because you think a movie is good, doesn't mean it can't be bad. Just because a movie is bad, doesn't mean that it can't be good. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.